From Deep Focus World Headquarters in Sleepy Hollow, New York, I'm Bryant Frazer, and this is Audio Commentary. For this edition of Audio Commentary, an experimental new feature at deepfocus.com, I want to take a look at the opening titles for one of my favorite movies of the 90s, David Fincher's outstanding crime drama horror film, Se7en. Note that the title appears on screen with the numeral 7 replacing the letter V. So, strictly speaking, this film's title is spelled Se7en. This drives some people crazy. Remember, it was unclear to audiences at the time what sort of movie this would be. Certainly New Line was happy to promote it as a very mainstream thriller. But once the lights went down, this title sequence would serve notice that the film aspired to be anything but an ordinary police procedural. On the audio commentary from Criterion's original Laserdisc release, Fincher says the title sequence was put together after preview screenings in order to get the serial killer John Doe into the film earlier.
Eventually, in preview screenings, it was decided that the opening was too slow and needed to be accelerated. That's when we decided to inject Doe somewhere into the first reel. It was obvious that in a way we wanted in the first 5 minutes to let the audience know that this was not Legends of the Fall. If that's what they were expecting, that they were in the wrong theater.
Once the decision was made to put Doe himself into the titles, storyboards were created that depicted John Doe piecing together the notebooks, scribbling in them, sewing in them, inserting locks of hair, cutting out images and sticking them in with packing tape. To create the title sequence, Fincher collaborated with Kyle Cooper, a graphic designer working at R. Greenberg and Associates. Cooper was interested in using the meticulously detailed notebooks that had already been created as props for John Doe's apartment by design firm PhD. Pages from these notebooks were used as backgrounds in early versions of the sequence, and they became the jumping-off point for the finished version. On the Laserdisc commentary, Fincher says the physicality in the sequence, the way Doe is seen working with the paper, attaching artifacts to the pages, is meant in part as an homage to Stan Brakhage and Norman McLaren, filmmakers who are similarly involved with the physicality of celluloid, chemically manipulating images, scratching film emulsion to create jittery white lines, or even attaching foreign objects to the celluloid, as Brakhage did in Mothlight, shaking organic matter out of light fixtures at his home and running the results through an optical printer. The titles themselves were printed on black and white Kodalith stock, and were photographed with an old camera by a man named Findlay Bunting, who moved the sheets of film around, shook them, opened the gate in the camera, trying to make the words on the screen look as jittery and photographically imperfect as possible, again underscoring their existence as physical artifact rather than just words on a screen. Doe is also seen going over pages of typeset text, redacting words with a black marker in a censorious manner. This conveys the idea early on that John Doe disapproves of elements of contemporary culture and feels that society would be better off if certain ideas or people were marked out, obliterated. It's particularly effective because it suggests a certain kind of religious fundamentalism that was very much on the rise in the mid-1990s when the film was released. That quasi-religious feel is underscored by the choice of music, a remix of Closer by Nine Inch Nails, one of the great contemporary songs about sex. It climaxes with the line, "You get me closer to God." Closer became a radio and MTV hit in 1994 on the back of a video directed by Mark Romanek that was partly inspired by some of the same Joel Peter Witkin imagery referenced in the photos taped into John Doe's notebooks. There was a feeling that something transgressive had broken out into pop culture. Se7en, a movie with an old-fashioned moral strategy illustrated through Grand Guignol tactics, was tapping the same formerly underground zeitgeist and bringing it to the mainstream in a major Hollywood movie. It was largely on the strength of these titles that Kyle Cooper was able to co-found his own Los Angeles design firm, Imaginary Forces, which continues to do interesting creative work, mainly for high-end studio pictures. The live-action portion of the sequence was shot by Harris Savitas, who recently shot Zodiac for Fincher, and it was edited by Angus Wall, who would later cut Fincher's Panic Room, Zodiac, and The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. And while the sequence is meant to reference John Doe's frame of mind, it also introduces you to the cinematic brain of David Fincher, a director who's since proven himself to be, for better and worse, every bit as obsessive, meticulous, and detail-oriented as the serial killer who became his calling card.